Hello there folks, and welcome to something a little different. Now, you're probably wondering why we're staring at the spinny thing, which isn't spinning and has no miniature on it. And the reason is because I want to show you some cool ways, really interesting and simple ways to improve your miniature photography. Now, coming up, the very next How I Paint Things will be number 500. So I wanted to do something that would look pretty cool. Now, you've seen a glimpse of this with the Marcher US Infantry. The thumbnail that I did for that was done using this method. So I just wanted to show you a few cool bits and pieces you can do to just have a bit more fun with your photos than popping your miniatures up against a plain white background. Now, obviously, staring at the spinny thing by itself doesn't tell us very much, but I've got my little ring lamp and everything set up the way that I need to. And I'm going to show you very quickly how you can arrange a scene to give your miniature somewhere to belong, as it were. I talk about context when I'm basing miniatures all the time. This is a similar sort of idea. So first things first, what I'm going to do is grab, this is a 3D printed book holder. Obviously it doesn't have to be printed. You can cruise down and find these in most office supply stores. And I'm just going to slide that up behind my little stand here. Now the stand doesn't have to be round or what have you. This is literally what I've got, which is going to bring the miniature up to the right sort of height for me to photograph it. Now the book holder here, there's a couple of options that you've got. The ones that I've been using have been the John Hodgson backdrop books. And I'm going to grab one of those now. Now I'm going to drop this bad boy into my little holder. And this is from the Sci-Fi Backgrounds book. I really like this one because it's got such a wide variety of colors, backdrops. The vibe of each of the paintings in this book is really handy. Now obviously it doesn't have to be one of these backdrop books, and I will show you another option in a little bit, but that's what I'm going to try and take a photo in front of. But instead of just leaving the miniature on this little black thing here, what I have, now these were little cheap cork coasters. They cost me €1 for 4 of them. In hindsight, I would probably have been better off to go for square ones for how they'll work with that false horizon, but I'm working with what I've got. These, you basically treat them like a giant base. You can slather them in PVA. They will go, if you get cheap ones, they will bend a little bit, but it's not going to matter by the time we've taken our photos. The other handy thing is that they will very easily split. And this is no big problem, especially if you've got cheap ones, to add to a second coaster, a bit of height, a bit of layering. That garbage I'm going to throw aside for now. And here is the desert sort of themed look that I've got for my bases. Now, like I said, hindsight is 2020. I would probably have been better off to splurge on a slightly more expensive coaster, something with a firm backing so that it would stay flat. The curvature is not going to matter all that much though. So let's push my camera in a little bit, or a little bit, and grab our miniature. And there we have Captain James T. Kirk of the Federation Starship Enterprise. Now, this is a little bit flat, and this is where lighting comes into play. There is an excellent guide over on the Warhammer community site where they talk about how they light, play with focus in miniatures and stuff like that. I will link to it in the description because it was the basis of most of my knowledge for miniature photography when I got started. It's extremely useful, but to demonstrate what I'm talking about, I'm going to pop on the ring light, and suddenly a whole lot makes more sense. The idea is that you want to try and light your miniature from as many places as possible and eliminate the shadows and what have you that are going to look unnatural. Now, as you can see, this is all live. This is not edited. But what I'm going to do is just zoom in briefly on Kirk here, and I'll play with my lighting a little bit more. Make that warm instead of cool. And I think we have a winner there. From here I could just take the photo, go ahead, pop that into an editing program, maybe adjust a little bit of the lighting further, but for the basics, that's brilliant. And all that is a backdrop and a little bit of basing material on that coaster. Now what I'm going to do is I've actually got here a tablet, and I can pop that in behind me here. And you can see, I think, some of the limitations to using a tablet rather than a book, because you're going to get some reflection. Depending on how you set up your scene though, they might not matter. So let's have a play around here. Now again, just playing with some of the lighting. This is all live and in camera. What I'd suggest obviously is that you're probably going to find this a little easier than I will, trying to light this and not get that shine, because I'm trying to record video live at the same time. You can see me gesturing wildly in the background there. But if I futz with my camera here and zoom in on the bad guys that I want to actually have the photo be of, let's just mess with that a little bit. You can very easily see how I'd be able to trim out the bases at the bottom and have my dark tide fellas charging through and looking pretty cool. Now, one of the neat things about using background elements, whether it be something like this printed plinth thing or it be a backdrop, is that you've got a lot of colors on the screen, which particularly if you're using, a camera like I normally am, a lot of camera apps have quite aggressive white balance issues, meaning that your colors are not normally going to look quite accurate if you're putting a miniature in front of a white backdrop. What will happen instead is that your phone is trying to balance out what that should actually look like, and it doesn't see things in the same way that the human eye does. Whereas, if we give it loads of color, instead it concentrates on what it can actually see, and we get a much more realistic finish. So let's zoom those guys out again. And the cool thing is, it doesn't even necessarily have to be these little scenery bases that I've been talking about. You can actually just use scenery. If you've got the right sort of scatter terrain or what have you for your board, then sometimes, you can go ahead and pop your fella in front of a little bit of terrain. Let's mess with our lighting. I think that looks a bit more evocative. And zoom in. And again, just by trimming that, if I shift this ever so slightly, there we go. I'd be able to very easily pop that into an editing program and have a really cool photo. And then sometimes you can actually stand your fellas completely off and behind the basing element. And let's see what I can get here. Yeah, man. The foreground option there I think is going to look really cool. I can obviously cut away some of the black stuff, and a little bit of fudging in your photo editing software is going to be nice and simple. I really like how this looks. And if you think these look cool, just bear in mind that these are all done, like I said, live and in camera. There is no editing to any of what you're seeing. This is exactly how it appears on the thing in front of me. So with a little bit of tweaking, you're going to get some fantastic results. Now, one last thought is that if you are going to source either backdrop books or images from online, then remember that if you're going to be using them somewhere like YouTube, as I am, then there is a commercial license to consider. Some folks will put up their work and quite happily say, as long as you credit me, I don't mind it being used. Some folks are instead going to say, hey, a nominal fee for my work I don't think is unreasonable, and I don't think that's unreasonable either. You are using somebody's photos, artwork, or similar, and it's only fair to chip in there. So hopefully something there has been interesting to you. Maybe there's some cool ideas. I do thoroughly recommend. I've had a great time this weekend just painting coasters and messing around with my photography. So, like I said, next video is going to be how I paint things 500. Big reason for me to be taking better photos. And let me know if something here actually sparked your ideas. If you do decide to do something like this, make sure you tag me in on Instagram or somewhere like that, because I'd love to see what folks are up to. Anyhow, now I've got to go and decide what I'm going to do for this next video. And folks, I will see you all again soon. Thank you very much for your time.